Good evening, Hub Nation. Welcome to another episode of 5 Elements of Success Player Development Series. I'm Roger Nick, your host and founder of Junior Golf Hub. We got a great show for you this evening. We're going to be talking about golf skills versus mechanics. You're probably wondering what that means. We're going to be talking about that later in the show. You got 10 minutes. Make sure you're doing your self-assessment, assess your game, see where you are in your golf journey. Go to that Junior Golf Hub app, download the app. Make sure you take 10 minutes. Do that self-assessment. Let's find out how we can help you on your golf journey. Also, as always, we want to make sure to keep this interactive. Send in your questions to 5 Elements at thegolfperformancecenter.com or right here on the YouTube chat. We want to make this show better. We want to help you get better out there as well. So send some comments, complaints even. We'll try to get this show better for you. All right? Before we get started on the show tonight, we've got Tyler Campbell here, Director of Golf and I'm sorry.
Director of Golf. You don't want that.
No. We don't want that. We've seen his game, right? Director of Performance here at the Golf Performance Center. Sorry about that, Tyler. Didn't mean to scare you there. And also Dennis Hill. We kind of have it a little flip tonight, so it's
usually I'm on your left.
Yeah, kind of flipped me, threw me off there. But anyway, Dennis Hillman here, Director of Golf Instruction here. Director. Oh man, I'm all messed up tonight on that one. But anyway. Dennis, welcome to the show tonight.
Thanks.
We got a good show tonight. We're going to be talking about, again, those golf skills versus mechanics. Also, our pop quiz question tonight. What is the difference in soft skills and hard skills? What is the difference between soft skills and hard skills? Stay tuned to the show. Keep tuned in here. We're going to be talking about that and what that's all about. Okay? Tyler, again, before we get into tonight's shows, what did we cover last week?
Last week, we were outside out on the practice facility. It was great. We talked about stats and if stats really matter. Yeah. And I think, to cut to the chase, I think we did determine that stats, play a role in our development, but too often they get misconstrued and understanding how to use stats, what stats to use at the right time and right stages of your development are very important. So be sure to check out that episode and all previous episodes at juniorgolfhub.com/5 Elements.
Awesome. And they do matter, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good.
We've got to roll.
So, again, this week we're going to be talking about, again, those golf skills versus mechanics. Dennis, later on we're going to have Stephanie Malloy come on and talk with us about this as well. But, as we know them here, talk to us about what is that difference? Because we hear this about golf skills. I've got all these golf skills, and then we see everybody talking about or focusing on their mechanics. So talk to us the difference.
Yeah, I mean the golf skills are actually the execution of different golf shots from 2-foot putts to flop shots, drives, actually controlling the golf ball. So those are those soft skills. The hard skills are when we talk about swing mechanics or the fundamentals in the golf swing and the chipping motion, the putting stroke that support those soft skills. So what we see is a lot of time a disconnect between how people practice, the time and energy they put into working on swing mechanics versus working on skills. So, maybe spending 80% or 90% of their time working on, swing mechanics and then expecting certain skills to show up versus actually approaching it with the intention, to develop a skill and the swing mechanics support that. So.
Yeah, so really looking forward to talking more in depth about that and how you kind of determine which comes first.
Sure.
So really excited about that. But it really kind of leads me back to before you leave the show tonight, Tyler, and talking about the support of the physical skills when it comes to supporting golf skills.
Yeah, again, I know I'm a little biased here, but I think that the physical being, our overall movement quality and level of function is going to be at the base of both hard skills and soft skills and in different ways. But, so often we'll see the early developer on the golf side, that young junior athlete, 8, 9, 10 years old, whose golf swing is beautiful, and maybe they've worked really hard on ingraining those mechanics, but they lack a lot of athleticism and the ability to develop some of those soft skills that are going to be required of them later in the game as they develop and get stronger, and those skills are asked of them more frequently. So I think there's a fine line between balancing athleticism and developing that at the right stage, but also and essentially that will help you develop those hard skills in time. I would say that, again, function dictates form, and that goes to both hard skills and soft skills.
Yeah, I think, we were talking about this before the show. There are different athletes or different players who it really shows up later on in their careers. Sure. Obviously, we see the PGA Tour. We see the effort of a lot of these players that are coming in now and are better athletes, right?
Absolutely.
And you're seeing how their swings don't look traditional, if you will. And I know, Dennis, that's something that we talk a lot about, you don't have to have the same swing. But there are windows of opportunity, like, i.e. Kevin Na, if you will, very solid player, very good junior player. It was the only thing he did for a long, long time in his career. But that's a limiting factor there, too, because of maybe some of those things you were just talking about as far as supporting those mechanical hard skills, and also how he develops, awareness on the golf course with the soft skills.
No, absolutely. I think there's when you look at ingraining those hard skills, and Dennis, you mentioned 80-90% spending that much percentage of your time on developing that, you might improve repeatability and maybe accuracy, which is obviously extremely important in this game. But what you might be missing out on is those opportunities to develop the nervous system to generate speed and power and explosiveness. So I think again the trend that you're seeing on tour is that these golfers are athletes first, and they've had the opportunity to develop their bodies to support the power that they're trying to generate, and at the same time that athletic base has allowed them to have the body awareness, the proprioception of, really transferring those hard skills into something more efficient, and essentially that'll keep them healthy too.
Yeah, I mean, that's really huge in this game because, again, there's so much stress that's been, that's on the body when they're going through a golf swing, but also the stresses of going out there in uneven lies, different, weather conditions, things like that do affect how we move or the stability and the mobility of the athlete on the golf course as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That athletic foundation is huge. I know we look at, we may look at it from a technical standpoint on the golf side, the golf coach, the golf instructor, but, fundamentally, athletically, how somebody is actually moving, it can be quite different. It actually can be better than, maybe the aesthetics of the golf swing that somebody has and maybe the path the club takes, a loop like Jim Furyk has or something, but, maybe there's fundamentally some good things going on that it makes sense why he might be able to control the golf ball.
Yeah, it does. And, let's welcome on Stephanie Malloy. Welcome. One of our lead coaches here at the Golf Performance Center. And I think, really want to talk tonight about this whole soft skills versus mechanics, because I think, as we go down this road of player development and understand what true player development really is, I think it's so important to kind of understand, what happens, because I think as an instructor, as a coach, we have one intention of improving the play, but then we see so many players or so many coaches out there sending on a lesson tee and only giving hard skill lessons. Stephanie is one of the lead coaches here, and I know we just started this phase or this spring, our assessment period, if you will. Tell us kind of what that really means to you as a coach, understanding their golf skills versus how they actually hit the shot.
Sure,
the mechanics.
Absolutely. So it's obviously very important to start with the assessment, because if you don't have an assessment and a baseline, I don't know exactly where to go from there and have a pathway. That's why I believe we are changing the industry, I would say, just assessing first and then, again, looking at the mechanics and the hard skills, but then transferring that into soft skills. Can you hit that 5-yard draw, fade? Can you chip into a circle that's 3, 5, 10 feet? Like, those are the skills that we need on the golf course.
Yeah, and I know, Dennis, that's something that, we talked about is like, where does it start? Where does it come from? And that support of that means we're really asking the question of, if I'm not, having these soft skills, the golf skills, if you will, to control the golf ball, why not, right?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it, as Stephanie said. Let's start with an assessment. Let's assess those skills, and then we can start to take a deeper look and say, okay, what's actually happening? What are the things we know influence, the execution of a golf skill? So we know there's equipment, right, from lie angles to length, weight, shaft flex. Everything that goes into having the right equipment is going to influence your ability to control the golf ball. Obviously, your mechanics or your fundamentals are huge. And, deeper than that, all the way back to Tyler's side is, that function dictates form. We want to understand that athlete's movement patterns and any limitations that they might have.
Yeah. So as you're going through this and you see young players coming to you, and I think there are probably differences in skill level, all right, and then there's differences in where they are physically in their development. So
Sure.
what are the things that how would you prioritize that with an athlete?
So again, just what Tyler said too, we have to start with the physical side, just how their body is moving. I think we see in a lot of young kids too that they're almost like Gumby, right? They have a lot of that mobility, but do they have the stability? So we have to start there first. The assessment, look at the mechanics obviously, and then where are they weak according to our PDI system too. So then we create our pathway that way.
Yeah, talk about this, Dennis. Talk about that PDI, the Player Development Index, a little bit, and why that's so important for people to understand.
Yeah, I think, really it's important. As Tyler recapped the stats last week, we look at those as lag factors, just like your score. But the PDI is a lead factor, right? So understanding where an athlete is physically, athletically, with their function, understanding where their golf skills are outside of, the course or competition. So it's 123 shots. And then obviously the third component is where they are, how they're performing in competition. So it really gives us a different look at potential. I think, where an athlete might be headed, and then as far as, where they headed in the future with their potential. But it gives us a look at strengths and weaknesses. So we can really take, we start there, take a deep dive, and start to understand, okay, well, you struggle with this skill, and that relates maybe to this movement pattern, which relates to this, function or physical limitation. So it gives us a way to really connect some dots and help that athlete practice better, really.
Yeah. So we're going to do some examples of what a soft skill is versus mechanics. So why don't we have Tyler Campbell come in, get a club, and actually hit some shots for us. Maybe Stephanie, if you can call out what shot you want him to do, and then we can actually look at that and identify those
Just
things.
don't call it out till he gets to the top of his backswing.
Exactly. Somebody's got to guess.
I need a golf ball.
Yeah, so Tyler, why don't you back up there a little bit, give yourself a little room.
All right.
I don't have
And I'll get you a couple golf balls.
I haven't swung with a headset on before. This is a first.
All right. Okay. All right. There we go. No warm-up, just like before the FMS. No warm-up.
Little do you know, I was here an hour ago.
All right, Tyler.
So you got it through.
I'm going to start with a mid-straight trajectory. Mid-trajectory, straight ball. Yep.
All right, let's give this a go.
Back up just a little bit, Tyler, so make sure we get on the camera there. Come on
I gotta come backwards just a little bit.
There you go.
How's that? Am I on?
Oh,
I think that'll get it.
Looking
Got
solid.
a little uneven lie here. Speaking of uneven lies.
You're an athlete.
Oh, yeah.
Felt pretty good.
Felt pretty good.
A little stiff, but I think it flew.
Yeah.
Did it fly straight? Medium straight?
I think
Yep. Medium straight. 9 ball plates. All right, high draw.
Oh, man. I used to be good at this. All right, let's see.
Sounded like it might have.
Sounded like that was a duck hook.
Yeah, no, listen, that was a fairway finder.
That
right
might have
there.
been out of our dispersion a little bit.
So Tyler, thank you for that.
No, you got it.
So if you're looking at that, though, Stephanie, so you're saying, okay, you've just said, I need this soft skill, right? So you're looking for this soft skill of hitting these shots. That's what it's all about. So, but what are you looking at now? What does he need to hit that shot, if you will?
So we need to then look at the mechanics, almost work our way backwards, right? So where's his mechanics, and then where is he physically? Obviously,
nice.
like what is the is there a limiting factor there that we need to assess from your standpoint, and then the mechanic, the soft skill, and then hopefully transfer all that to the golf course.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, what would you say your ball flight tends to be?
So
What's your go-to ball flight? Or
it's funny. I've been playing more of a
flat shank.
Told you to be nice now. I've been playing a little bit more of a cut the last 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
So
right.
Straight ball with a little bit of a cut. And I think honestly, when we talk about function, I think my lead hip, I don't rotate as well, getting into my lead side.
Sure.
And so I think I have a tendency to kind of get a little bit, I don't want to call it over the top, but maybe maybe
Over the top underneath?
Yeah.
With the
there you
early
go.
extension?
Oh, yeah.
So trajectory
We don't see that.
tends to be
Do
low,
we?
medium, high.
I usually have a pretty high trajectory.
So-
Again,
so-
that comes from my lower body action, I have a feeling.
Yeah, exactly. So those are kind of the dots that we want to connect there and say, okay, so maybe easier the high ball flight. Now, why is that? Well, there's a certain release pattern that maybe there's a little bit of a flip, right, a little bit of a scoop, if you will. And so generally, that relates to first how the body's moving, right? You're kind of forced to scoop a little because the body is extending versus rotating because of those physical limitations. So now we can say, okay, sure, right now your go-to ball flight is high, and that's okay based on how you're moving. But if we can work over time, over the long term, to improve the movement patterns, then that'll support the mid and certainly the low, which might be the more difficult one for you. So the first step really would be to work on the function, right?
Yeah, and assess kind of where I am physically, and I've got a little inside scoop, but rotation into that lead leg can be tough at times.
Yeah, absolutely. Sound pretty good though. Pretty solid.
Yeah,
Sound pretty solid, but I think Stephanie, that's one of the things that you as a coach though too look at is you see this on a flat lie. Now that dysfunction that you just described with how you struggle with the lead hip and being able to rotate well and having that early extension. So what happens to that when he gets on maybe uneven lies, and how does that play a role in that? Because again, the outcomes then are probably more affected.
Yep, you put the words right in my mouth. So dispersion, right? The dispersion is going to be a lot worse, most likely, and I'm not sure what the golf IQ is there, because that's a whole other story. But if it is like a side hill lie,
he's a performance coach.
I like to think the golf IQ is pretty solid. I wish the golf swing was as good as the golf IQ at times.
And especially if it's a hang underneath, like you said, early extension, either it could come in fat or block right when you get on those uneven lies.
Totally.
So.
Yeah, so that's why the importance then, Dennis, as you were just explaining, is assessing and understand that, so you can actually work back to, hey, here's the real crux of the problem, and let's work on that. That doesn't mean that you're not still working on the golf skills itself, correct?
Absolutely. I think work on, again, we love the 9 ball flights. That's why we put it in our coach guided assessment. We want to make sure it's one of the first things you understand is where you are with the 9 ball flights. So from that, you've got a basis just for practicing, but you've also got, hey, these are the ones I'm strong with right now. So maybe if I go play a tournament tomorrow, I'm going to use those more because that's what I'm good at. But long term, I want to work towards having the ability to hit all those shots.
Yeah, and I think that's where so many players struggle, is that they think I have this one shot down, which again, if I'm a tour player and I'm looking to make my living, it's probably I'm more resistant to change that because I got to go make the cut. I got to make my money, if you will, right, to stay and survive. But
even on the junior level, you'll see they'll put so much weight on a certain tournament that they're not willing to make that change. They don't have that long-term approach necessarily. They're looking at the next event, which in some respects there's some weight, but I would say keeping that longer-term vision, if that's really where your goals are, is
absolutely
where they need to be.
Yeah, I mean, the higher level golf it gets, and the more those pins are tucked and the firmer the greens get, the more you really have to control the spin. Now, it's not just through the air. I think a lot of people think of that, but it's really after it hits the green, what does the ball do? Can you really control from landing to, I always think Tiger's ball always seemed to land and get closer to the pin versus the other way.
Yeah. And that's him having such an acute awareness of all the factors that go into that, right? I mean, obviously he has a high level of golf skill in probably every category, from driver to chipping and putting, to understanding really, how he's going to come into the whys of that happening, right? I mean, that's
absolutely. I mean, and that's how he gets into deep practice. He said he's got an intention to develop a skill for a purpose that he can apply in competition, and then he dives really deep into everything that goes into developing that skill.
Yeah. So Stephanie, what are some of the things that you would want the audience to know from this as far as understanding the soft skills of golf and then the mechanics and where you are as a coach or coaches out there or parents who are working, and have these young players? What would be the, the message you want to give?
Sure. I think I would just warn against being the perfect range player. I think I see that a lot. Just really focusing so much on mechanics, and we see that player, right? It's like, wow, they should be shooting even par or better, but meanwhile they're shooting mid-80s. Right. Why is that? And I think that's speaking to exactly what we're talking about and our point of they're focusing so much on mechanics, but can they execute the shot, envision it, all the factors that we take into account in our PDI.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to some of the things that we talk about too as coaches, is where maybe this is the system's fault, right? We talk about handicap and indexes and things. Why we've created the player development index, more so the player development when it comes to skill versus just a score index, because what we've noticed is really player development isn't happening because of that lag number of the USGA index or RNA index, right? But yet, if you're looking at the skills from the player development side, you probably see the lag factor, index change.
Yeah, for sure, and that's it. It's how do you get that end result to change it? So I think the PDI is really it's a great tool because it breaks it down into everything that needs to be developed, across the board from 2 feet to drives, and I think it really it informs people how to practice better, more deliberately.
Yeah, and again, we're not saying that there's a neglect to the mechanics of things. It's just they have a place and time in where they are. So how much time would it take for me to develop on my mechanics, or do you have a sense of what you would where you want to spend your time?
So I mean, off season I would say is probably the biggest point where you'd want to spend your time if you have an off season. That's just really working on the mechanics, and then as the season approaches, it is more of that transition into the soft skills and scoring, right? There's definitely a difference between focusing on score, because I don't think you should necessarily focus on the result, but the act of scoring, right? So transitioning from that mechanical standpoint to then the soft skills, bringing it on the course.
Yeah. Dennis, how about yourself? I mean, you're doing this a long time as well. What's your take?
Yeah, I think it can adjust a little bit based on the athlete. Certainly on the time, based on the time of year. So we look at it as 80% block practice in the off season. So really diving into something specific, and a lot of that can be on swing mechanics. So why not? Because it's hard to change motor patterns. It's uncomfortable, and you may take a step back before you take 2 steps forward. So take the off season time to break it down, do an assessment, come up with a plan to actually try to change your movement patterns, and then as you get in season, ideally you flip that to really 80% just random practice, skill, soft skill based practice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm going to change subjects here just a little bit, but it does apply. Mm-hmm. Now, we've got next week the Masters coming up. Mm-hmm. One of the majors, first major of the year. Really exciting time. Do you think these players are going into that kind of working on mechanics, or thinking about their soft skills and hitting golf shots?
Good question. I think you'll see some variance based on where they are. I think the ones who really are going to perform well are probably have a little bit of time on mechanics, but familiar mechanics, things they've done for a long time that they just want to get back to, from as simple as an alignment stick and their stance width and their posture. I think they're just getting back to some simple stuff, but it's going to be a lot of time on executing shots. We were fortunate enough to go a few years ago, and Tyler and I sat right behind Rory McIlroy, watched him warm up, and it was amazing to see him hit. Every shot was different. I think he hit the flag with his third wedge shot. He was hitting draws and fades and all kinds of different shots at different targets. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's great. And this week we have the Augusta Invitational for women, right? And I think that's a really special time for a lot of the good amateur players out there.
Absolutely.
I wonder when they're going to have a professional event there for the women. Yet to be determined, right?
Yes.
But so what do you think? They're going to this week. Thinking.
Same thing. I mean, I'm going to say pretty much exactly what Dennis said there. It's probably a variance of mostly working on soft skills, I would say, and what's familiar to them. But some mechanics, and if there is a swing change per se that they need to work on, but definitely more of an external focus, I would say.
Yeah, and probably supporting that, both of your statements is that, hey, if I'm not hitting the ball as well as I like to, they're trying to figure out why they're not hitting that and hitting the shots that they want to hit, right? So that's the blend of going to maybe the driving range before or after a round of saying, I'm not feeling as comfortable as I should. So there's that time of, am I blending the mechanics and hitting the shots and to get better outcomes? Yeah,
exactly. So I think it's the work on the mechanics has a purpose, right? It's not just to look good. I think right. Again, for junior golfers out there and a lot of golfers, I think it's almost an exercise in vanity. It's like, I just want my swing to look really good, right? Yeah. For whatever reason. But we call them empty suits. There's a lot of good swings.
Looking good versus being good.
Yeah.
It's a huge
and they
difference.
don't execute good results. So there's a difference between what reason you're working on them for. So.
Yeah. Well, again, just speaking of Augusta and the Masters, so next week our show is going to be dedicated to the Masters. So, tune in next week on that as well. So we've got the Junior Golf Hub is going to be running a promotion, or I shouldn't say a promotion, but we're going to do a Masters pool. So stay tuned for that information for those premium members out there on the Junior Golf Hub. If you're not a premium member, go in and sign up now. Get that premium membership. Again, download the app there. And before we move on, I guess we have some questions, Michael.
Yep, we have a couple questions. How many hours should I spend on hard skills versus soft skills?
Great question.
Yeah, good question. I think we just touched on it a bit. I think look at the time of year. Again, just simply, I think 80% hard skills in the off season and 80% soft skills in season, I think is a good way to go.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, and what should I work on first, golf skills or mechanics?
Another good
one.
Very, very good one. Because this isn't to say that you couldn't be a great player if you had the golf skills, right? We touched a little bit on that prior, but I guess, again, going back to an assessment, get assessed first just to have a baseline. Then you can really set forth a plan with mechanics and then working in the soft skills as well.
Great.
That's it for questions.
That's it for questions. All right. Did we have a pop quiz winner?
Yeah, our winner this week is Tanner Marzullo.
Tanner, all right.
Nice.
Congratulations. Tanner, congratulations on winning that. I think you won a dozen Titleist golf balls, so thanks for participating. I also want to just make sure I give a shout out to the Hurricane Junior Golf Tour interns. We had some fun yesterday talking a little bit about life and where they're headed, and good luck out there to all you guys. So thanks for tuning in today as well. And as always, make sure you download that Junior Golf Hub app, get those coaches in your pocket, find that right fit for you. Also do that self-assessment. Again, it only takes 10 minutes. Do that self-assessment, start that journey. As Stephanie just mentioned, you know what, you want to find out where you are before you start going down a road that may not be the right road for you. So download the app. And we also want to make sure that we say thank you to Ethan Allen Preparatory, achieving your greatness in the classroom, on the golf course, and in life. So thanks so much for tuning in this week. We look forward to watching the Masters and the Women's Invitational this week at Augusta, and watching the Masters next week with you guys. Have a great week. See you next week. Enjoy.